Hello, everybody. Welcome to another Community Cleric. I am so excited to have you all here with us tonight. And I am so excited to finally get to speak to Skald, who, I don't know that stock has such a negative connotation. And I don't need, I want the version that doesn't have that. But like many people, I have been fortunate enough to have all of the amazing positiveness and kindness that Skald is just a champion of through our interactions on Twitter. And I booked this, I don't know, correct me if I'm wrong, we booked this in March.
It was a good while ago. Yeah, it's been a long time coming.
Yeah. Well, thank you for being on my show.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm really excited to be here.
I am so excited to get to talk to you and find out more and
Awesome.
and we have to talk. There's so much. I can't just talk about one thing because there's a lot of things.
There's so many things.
There's so many things. I start by I need to acknowledge that I live in treaty territory. I am from Mi'kma'ki, which is the ancestral and unceded territories of the Mi'kmaq people here in Nova Scotia, Canada, and I am a treaty person. So for those of you who don't know, Skald. And I can click the button because I have buttons at my command. Skald, go click all of the links, is an amazing, supportive, and reflective, that idea that a rising tide raises all boats, which is a continuous theme in the people that I have been really fortunate to know in the Ttrpg world. I know it's not true for everybody, but Skald really embodies that. And so I'm just really, really excited that she is my guest tonight. She is a writer. She is an author. She runs a podcast, right? Awfully Queer Heroes is a podcast. Mm-hmm. And then just the shining ray of positivity and supporting other people. I don't want to undersell or understate how important that is, because you have been around long enough. I have been around long enough to see that Twitter in general can be kind of a toxic, shitty place.
Kind of is putting it mildly, but yes.
I'm trying to be, I'll understate delicate. That piece maybe. Mm-hmm. And in the TTRPG world, especially over the last few years, we've really started to see that culture shift of that kind of old guard gatekeepers who didn't really appreciate the values and diversity and other things that new players brought to the table, or felt that they were losing something by new players playing their own versions of whatever. And you've just really stood in that gap and made space for other people. And you're part of why I really strongly encourage people to curate their social media and particularly their Twitter presence to not have those negative influences, because really Twitter can be not a bubble, but it can be a place where you go to be uplifted and to be given new opportunities and to be able to see the beautiful stuff that people are doing. Mm-hmm. Would you say that's true?
Absolutely.
And you've purposely made your space a place for that, for people to go to and have that.
That is definitely the goal. I want it to be a place for people the longtime veterans and the new players. Anyone who is welcoming, who wants to work on stuff, who wants to collaborate, especially when it comes to getting anything that's been marginalized made more visible, which is part of why I am part of Awfully Queer Heroes, because it's about getting more of this content, more representation, more equality, and more opportunity in these games that we all enjoy. And I think that certain social media presences are an important part of that, because it's how we connect with people.
Absolutely. And it's a really important part of forging those early relationships and supporting others, and uplifting people. I was talking to, I don't know that Anne is in the chat tonight, but Anne was saying that she really appreciates, people are saying face reveal. Your face is on. I've seen I made a Twitter banner for you that had your face on it. You don't hide who you are.
I mean, there is a I think the photo of me it might be a little on the grainy side.
And maybe side profile
it's
as
a little,
well. You're kind of looking
little sideways.
Yeah, that's fair. That's fair. Okay, fair enough, Amber. I won't I won't bandage you about that anymore. But like Anne was saying today that, you know, she really appreciates some opportunities that are coming her way. And I keep going back to like, there's just a really good GIF on Twitter that just says empowered women empower women. And like that idea that people who tear each other down are just shitty people, whether they're men, women, non-binary, whatever. And it shouldn't be the exception that people uplift other people.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
We're going to talk more about all of the good stuff in a second, but I need to know first, how did you become a nerd?
Honestly, I think I would be lying if I said I wasn't born one. I
Sure.
just feel like it's been one of those things that's always kind of been there. I, as a kid, was always someone who, and I'm still always into books, particularly fantasy settings. I was one of those kids who, at 5 years old, would be out in the woods swinging a stick around, which wasn't a stick, it was a sword, and I was killing goblins, not tree stumps. So, you know, it's one of those things that for as long as I can remember, for as long as I have memories of the world of fantasy and the kinds of sort of thematic stories that we find in things like Dungeons and Dragons, that's always appealed to me.
And
Always.
and you said books.
Mm-hmm.
Were you a fantasy reader as a kid and as a young person?
The first thing I got into was comic books.
Okay.
And I did go for the more sort of unusual type fantasy comics rather than the more mainstream ones. And then, of course, learning to read, getting into things like Lord of the Rings, of course, eventually, stuff like that. I remember as a younger kid, there was a series that I read that was for younger readers. That was the Del Toro Quest series, and just other fantasy books like that I got into. And then, of course, films and things like that as well.
And do you
So
find that you have a preference via film or book, like either growing up or now in your life, or
it's
both are valid
I
in
was gonna
different
say it's
representation?
it's kind of a mix. It's kind of a mix. I was also I was also a drama kid, so you can see the makings of a DM.
Come
I was
on.
a drama kid growing up. You know, it was all about summer drama camps and being in plays and stuff. As far as books to film medium, I would say that it's been a little bit of a mix. A lot of times, I really appreciate some of the visual artistry that can come about in films, but sometimes you just get a more full world with a book. And I think one of the best skills that can be cultivated for anyone who really loves fantasy is if there's a series you really like that is a book series, separate it in your mind from the film adaptation. Treat them
Right.
as two different things. That way you can enjoy them both because they're not comparable mediums. And so I would say it's been a little bit of both. I tended more towards films in the past. I've sort of swung a little back towards books, but most just of that is just because of the sheer amount of reading that I have to do for my school program. So it's just kind of happened that way.
Yes,
So
definitely. And I would even
yeah.
say like agree with everything you've said, and even within like film or movie franchises where there is a reboot or something,
Mm-hmm,
separate that out. They are different stories by different people for different audiences. Like
mm-hmm.
I was not I didn't really get into fantasy books as a kid. I was a sci-fi kid, theater
Nice.
kid, but sci-fi was
Yeah.
my big thing because my grandpa really loved Star Trek, and that's like what got me into it. And I watched all of like the next generation Star Trek movies with him growing up. He would take me to the movie theaters. We'd watch
Mm-hmm,
them, you know, on opening weekend or whatever. Um, and then as an adult, like they rebooted Star Trek, and I was like, how amazing that I now get to experience this with my daughter.
yes,
And like
absolutely.
it's okay that it's different stories. Like Picard is obviously kind of different because they're telling the later stories of a known character, but like
Mm-hmm,
it's okay that they're telling different stories or that they've completely rewritten some of the canon. Like that's okay. That's
mm-hmm,
it's beautiful, and like I can appreciate that. But yeah, like making that mindset. And I wonder like for how many people um I I can't tell whether it's because my social media is so curated at this point to
mm-hmm,
not be gatekeeping assholes, or
mm-hmm,
whether the community just really has shifted. I hope it's a little bit more of the later. But
mm-hmm,
you know, they've just announced like the Dragonlance and the Spelljammer series.
mm-hmm,
I
mm-hmm,
didn't see people complaining that they're launching these for 5e. Like,
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I'm sure that somebody did, but I didn't see that. And I was just so like encouraged by that because there are such beautiful stories and worlds to be explored there
Mm-hmm.
that, you know, saying, well, you have to play it with whatever rule set. I mean, you know, and I think that's part of like what I appreciate about Pathfinder releasing their lore as 5e modules
Mm-hmm.
is
Mm-hmm.
because it allows more people to experience it, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely, definitely. And as someone who my first TTRPG was Pathfinder,
Awesome.
so I appreciate the kind of diversity and the crossover and that there is more of that going on and that there's less exclusion based on difference in that way.
Yeah. Yeah,
So yeah.
absolutely. So you were a fantasy book kid, a born
Hmm.
nerd. How did you get into TTRPG? What did that
It
look like for you?
was, I mean, the background stuff was already there as far as it came to the media that I like to consume and being someone who was in acting programs and all that kind of stuff, who liked taking on characters as much as telling a story. My first encounter with a sort of a standard TTRPG system that we would be familiar with was Pathfinder, and it was for a friend's birthday party. We were, oh gosh, I want to say 13, 14, somewhere around there.
Prime
And
age.
her, yeah, just right
Just,
for it,
yeah.
just perfect. Her dad was actually a professional DM. And so for her birthday, we got
Cool.
together, did the four, and it was a group of all girls. We were some of the nerdy kids at school. We did a group of four of us, some pizza, and I think it ended up going like 6, 8 hours, some on, because we were just having so much fun. Many thanks and lots of kudos and respect to her dad who managed the entire thing. It must have been exhausting, but it was just, I don't think I'd ever experienced time going so fast in my entire life because I was having so much fun. I was so immersed and just sucked into the world of the game that, we looked around and we're like, oh, it's 11 o'clock at night. We need to stop.
Yeah.
And I think after that, it was pretty much kind of like, the rest is history. We started getting into a weekly game that we all played because we wanted to keep going with our characters. And that's where it all started. So
That is so cool. Like, so I'm a middle school teacher, have been for years and years. And
nice. Also, mad respect.
uh, you know what? Honestly, like middle school, I say that puberty is my jam. Like, I love this age of kids because they're taking those first steps of like seeing the abstract and seeing the shades of gray. I
Mm-hmm,
love
mm-hmm,
watching kids and like guiding kids in those early stages of,
mm-hmm,
oh shit, like early dystopian novels
mm-hmm.
and stuff. That's my total jam. And I
Nice.
love seeing kids become active agents in their lives and their
Mm-hmm,
future.
mm-hmm,
And that is something that is distinctly a middle school thing. But I
mm-hmm.
run the Dungeons and Dragons clubs at the middle schools that I've taught
Nice.
at.
Very nice.
And shout out to high school and middle school club facilitators because it is wild. But a couple years ago, we were just going away on our winter break, and I ran a party. We stayed after school. Usually we played like during lunch hour, but this day we
Mm-hmm.
stayed after school. I ordered a bunch of pizzas. I went to Costco and like got just way too much junk food. Um,
Nice.
and the kids stayed like after school. We stayed in the classroom till like 7:38, and it was 16 kids that I ran through a module. 16 seventh graders, and I
Wow.
basically set it up like multiple escape rooms where they all had little
Okay.
puzzles that they had to solve. And so I would like
Nice.
walk around from group to group. It was, I don't even know. I wish that I could like write it down and build it in the way that you are so good at like sharing
It
modules and
sounds
stuff.
fantastic.
I
Honestly, it sounds fantastic and a little mind-boggling at the same time.
I don't even know. It feels like so long ago. You know what? That was the winter break right before COVID hit, and it feels like so
Wow.
much for me has changed since then that I
Yeah.
do not know how I did it. But yeah, I appreciate that. Okay, so you started in Pathfinder.
Mhm.
Um, how did you get into podcasting and streaming? Like, where does AQH start for you?
So that's very recent for me. I played in just private games with friends, all that kind of stuff. Um, Up through when I started DMing, which was, oh gosh, like 2018, I think. And all my first DMing was for friend groups and it was Pathfinder. Got a little bit of 5e in there, but it was only ever with people that I knew that I played. And I actually had a Twitter account made a little while ago that was just a personal one. And more D&D stuff started showing up on it. And more and more and more. And I slowly kind of happily sank into the TTRPG community. And changed my account. So I used my old account, made it a new thing, changed the handle and everything. And then started making the little pocketbooks of traps and whatnot because I just wanted to contribute something and make those connections with other creatives and have something that I could put in as well as seeing what other people were working on. And I mean, I'm sure I'm not the only one who's found this community, and it's like stumbling across a magical grove somewhere. Because, this is Twitter. This is not a place where you go expecting to find positive social interactions. And so it was just a really wonderful space to come into, and to see the kind of work and not only the good stuff, but also the way that there is advocacy, the way that when issues have come up in the community, they have been dealt with, that people have been supported. Mm-hmm. That is really, really important. And so I'd been a member of the community for a good little while before I was actually approached by the person who created AQH originally, who's Kel, who is also runs the account with me, who basically said, "Hey, do you want to play D&D?" That was pretty much what it came down to. Like, "Hey, do you want to play D&D?" And it's like, "Sure, I always want to play D&D."
Yeah.
Because they were looking for more people to get onto their podcast team. So I was invited onto the podcast team first. We started doing that ages ago. And then there was a little time window where some stuff came up for them personally. So I was helping run the Twitter account a little bit. And it just kind of snowballed from there. And I started picking up more and more stuff until finally they were like, "Okay, you know what? We're just going to split this because you're doing enough stuff. Let's just split it." So I was very, very surprised. It was very, very generous of them. It still blows my mind, but they chose to split AQH with me. And so from there, we continue with the podcast. The podcast, as of season 1, is no longer going to be running currently. We are switching the focus of AQH more towards content creation than towards podcasting. So we'll be doing more Kickstarters and more stuff on Drive-Thru RPG and that kind of thing. But so yeah, basically it was someone saying, "Hey, come play D&D."
So. I mean, look, all good stories start that way, like, right? Mm-hmm. Like, all good stories are just like roll for initiative.
Absolutely.
Yeah, in real life.
Absolutely.
100%. 100%. Yeah. This is a really good time to talk about adventures in ADHD.
Yeah.
Because this is like, as a neurodivergent person, as a special ed teacher in particular, it was something that I looked at and went, "Oh, yes, this, like... how long have we known that there is definite slice of crossover between neurodivergent people and TTRPG community?" Where does this idea come from? How did you guys start to build that? You're the first person that I've interviewed who's run a Kickstarter, so I'm curious, like, what was that process for you?
So a lot of it was I came on a little bit later in the game on this one. The actual content of the Adventures in ADHD was pretty much completely done when I was onboarded. So I helped with the advertising, streams, getting stuff out there, setting up the Kickstarter page, all that kind of stuff. It's not the first Kickstarter that AQH has done, though. I think it's the third or fourth. They've released some other adventures, which are available on the website. There's a really fun one called Tower of Souls, which is a 1 through 20 campaign that we've actually played through on the podcast. I highly recommend it. It's a ton of fun. You basically play as bad guys. So it's a good time.
Look,
it's such a good time.
So good.
But a lot of it came from just, at least for Kel personally, as someone who, and we both have ADHD, for them realizing that a lot of people don't understand it and that there's a lot of stigma around it. And then stumbling across that running joke where, if Faye approaches you and asks for your attention, you say, "Sure." And they say, "Cool, thanks." And then just walk off with your attention. and it basically spawned the entire module, which we did a few little playthroughs of. I really, really like it because it's not your standard module. It's set up as education, but it's education through the way in which you play through it. It's not like it sits you down and tells you facts. It's that you will learn and discover things as you actually play through it. We actually had Amber here did an awesome stream of it that was so much fun. We had Minstrel's Tale did one as well.
Momo
so much
and
fun.
Amber are like,
right?
They're so good. Yes,
so good.
Consistently
so that was so much fun. And just that it's a module that's set up, it doesn't have a big bad end game. It doesn't have, twice undead lich that you have to defeat, because the whole idea is that it's about teaching, and it's about something that's not meant to be destroyed. It's about something that's meant to be understood. And so a way of sort of spreading awareness, but also having a ton of fun.
I appreciate that so much. There was somebody, I responded to a Twitter thread yesterday, somebody saying like, I've just been diagnosed with ADHD and I'm really worried. The doctor thinks that medicine will help me, but like my work and my success in life is built around my hyper focus, and I don't want to lose that. And I was just like, what a fundamental misunderstanding of what ADHD is and what medicine does to ADHD, because it's not a magic pill that cures those things. And like, as a teacher, how many times I've had kids with ADHD who, like, not all ADHD brains respond to medicine in the same way or benefit from medicine in the same way. But I have a number of kids who would benefit, and parents are like hesitant to put them on medicine, which I can understand. My daughter has ADHD. She was diagnosed when she was 7, put on like the 4-hour, like, for little kids, they put them on like the super short-term medicine, right? And she was put on the 4-hour medicine, and she went to school that morning, came home, and she came up to me at 7 and said, I can feel my brain getting fuzzy, and I don't like it because then I can't think about what I want to think about. And that to me made such a huge difference in how I conceived of and understood what medicine can do. It doesn't take away hyperactivity, or like, it does not also take away hyperactivity. It doesn't take away hyperfocus, and it doesn't cure somebody. It just, at least for my daughter anyway, the right medicine in the right brain can give you focus and control over what you're choosing to spend that focus on, and I think that so I loved seeing Adventures in ADHD, and like the way that it breaks down those stigmas. It's something that, like, when you guys get ready to do the Adventures in Autism, I will consult all day long for you guys, because I wish that there was more understanding around all of those pieces, because we need it. And especially because of the crossover in the community.
Absolutely. And that was one of the things that came up when we were originally kind of doing our advertising and our promos for it, was, first of all, that a big piece of it is understanding that the symptoms are incredibly diverse and they manifest completely differently from person to person. So one person's ADHD will look completely different from another person's, which is why it's frequently really misdiagnosed. And especially it's misdiagnosed for women,
100%.
Which is just really interesting. So bringing awareness to that, and then with the advertising, how many people in the community came forward and said, hey, I have ADHD and I'm interested in this. So because it is definitely something that you see a lot of in the TTRPG community. So it was really fun to have that be kind of the first project with the onboarding. There's already a bunch more that are lined up in the works. I think we're scheduled out through 2025 as far as what Kickstarters will be doing.
I'm so excited to see what you guys are coming up with. That's been a lot of fun. So I know that you, I have seen photos. You sent me photos when I was doing a Twitter banner for you. I have seen photos of you in costumes. Yes. Do you cosplay or LARP?
I want to LARP so badly. I have not yet had the chance to. If you guys know, Kaya, Twice Bitten. So it's like, I think we're like an hour and a half away from each other. And she's mentioned taking me to LARP at some point, which I would love to do. It's an opportunity that I would really, really love to explore. It's not something I have done before. I really want to. but I do occasionally do cosplays. I'm usually it's not something that I do anything more than recreationally. So it's been a while since I've really gone all out. But I do have some armor, a little collection of armor. I have a um completely accurate leather scuba suit Captain Marvel from the new
Awesome.
films one. Yeah.
Awesome.
It's really fun. It's very hot, but it's a lot of
I
fun. And
bet.
I do love doing cosplays. I go all out, especially on Halloween. It is absolutely one of my favorite holidays, so go all out with that one. But occasionally, yes, and then I have a few swords and a bow and whatnot because every self-respecting lesbian needs at least one sword. So
Sure.
yeah.
Absolutely. I now need to add something to a shopping list for a friend because I don't think that they do. So that's good to know.
Perfect.
That is okay. So you would like to LARP.
Hmm.
What other? I know you play Pathfinder. I know you play D&D.
Yeah.
What other systems? What other games do you enjoy or want to play?
So I've actually been lucky enough to play a couple of ones through the TTRPG community here. The first one that I was actually invited to was by Carrie Smith, which shout out to Carrie, you are an amazing DM. Carrie running the Deadlands. And so
Awesome.
getting to play Deadlands, which was a different dice system than I was used to.
Hmm.
That was the first. I also did I want to say Blades in the Dark with
Come on.
CC Dot and Derek from DMDM Studios, who's actually just in our Twitch
I
chat.
know.
Great guy.
I
Um,
love Derek so
I'm
much.
trying to remember who else was there. There was a couple of us. I think that Klaus was there as well. So that was super, super fun to play with those guys. That was a blast. So I've been able to play a few other systems different than a base D20 as well, which has been nice to
Hmm.
explore even beyond because Pathfinder and 5e are very, very similar in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
So it's been nice to get a little more diversity in the actual dice systems that I've used, but there's so many games to play, so many
There's
games in so little time.
Oh my gosh.
So
I played my first Blades in the Dark with Tavernaut for the trans rights, the Texas trans rights RPG-a-thon that he did. And it was so much fun that he's reassembled three-fourths of the main cast or three-fourths of the
nice,
cast to do a limited run series. So I'm gonna get to like
nice.
reprise that role, which I'm super excited about. And then right now I'm playing on DMDM Studios. I'm running.
Yes, I've seen the tweets for that. It looks like you guys have been having so much
I
fun.
mean, we're having fun. The system is real shitty. I'll just be
Yeah,
honest with
gosh.
you. The system is needlessly complicated, and super misogynistic. So we've just been fixing it as we go.
Nice. I
Um,
love that.
isn't
I love that.
that, yeah. I had
That's the way to do it.
forgotten. You know what? I can't even, in all honesty, I cannot say that I had forgotten that it was misogynistic. When I bought that in 2002, it probably would not have even occurred to me that it was misogynistic. Just, yeah,
Yeah.
women weren't included.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
because
Yeah.
D&D at the time was very similar.
Mm.
And it would not have occurred to me to be upset about that.
Yeah.
And so now, like picking it back up, because I was like, I've been running Fandolin by Night for a year. I was ready to like have a little break away from D&D for a little bit,
Hmm.
and
Hmm.
so and I had this book sitting here, and with the new Lord of the Rings series coming out, and like all of the fucking
The
stupid
timing's perfect.
grognards who were being dicks about women and black people in the Lord of the Rings series, I was like, great, I'm running an all femme Lord of the Rings, and Derek was like,
Nice.
I've got a channel for you.
I
So
love it.
it worked out so perfectly, and then reading through the book, sitting in character creation with the cast and reading through the book and going,
Mm.
what what
What
what
is
is
this?
this? Yeah, it was bananas. But yeah, Blades in the Dark, come on, so good.
Hmm.
And um yeah, just I mean, yeah, kind of getting away from that D20 system a little bit and just seeing
Hmm.
what else is out there.
Hmm.
All that being said, I like 5e as a system.
I love 5e. I do. I love 5e, and I still have a soft spot in my heart for the first edition of Pathfinder. So
I
yeah,
mean,
it's a great system.
it is a very well written system, and I
Mm-hmm.
think you can be as complex and min-maxy and nitpicky as you want to be,
Mm-hmm.
but it's also very open for anybody to run any kind of table they want
Mm-hmm.
without feeling totally constrained. That being
Yeah.
said, there is 2 shows that we greenlit on Girls Run These Worlds that, I mean, we've greenlit 8 shows. I have 8 shows in production over there because I am a crazy
Nice.
person. But
Love it.
Anne is running a gender bent good society, which
Nice.
I have never played, and we just finished casting it 2 days ago, and I'm so excited for
Nice.
that one. And then who is it? I'm gonna have to look it up because otherwise it's gone. Darcy. Do you follow JC Darcy _, on
Yep.
Twitter?
Mm-hmm.
She is going to run a Lancer, which is like a hardcore min-max
Nice.
mecha anime Gundam Evangelion kind of a thing.
Mm-hmm.
But she's running it as a romance simulator. Oh, I'm so here for it.
Oh gosh.
I'm so here for it.
That sounds like it's going to be a ton of fun.
Oh my gosh. Okay. Speaking of D20s and not D20s,
Yes.
show me your dice.
Show me the
Show me
dice.
the dice. That's what everybody's here for.
Which
All of them. All of
sets? Oh gosh, there's like way too many. I'm trying to see what I've got.
As you're grabbing, talk to me about your dice superstition. Do you have dice like per character, or do you just roll whatever's there? Do you store them in specific ways? Like,
I have some different storage methods and some special dice.
Okay.
First of all, I have the obligatory set of rainbow gay dice because everybody needs gay dice.
Everybody needs gay dice.
Everybody needs gay dice. You got to have a set in your back pocket at all times.
You're not really an ally if you don't.
Everyone needs gay dice.
Gay dice.
Then the other main sets that I have are let's do these guys first. I have a set of metal dice, which are my kind of older DM dice. They're
if you
dwarvish
put your
style.
Hand, if you hold it with your hand behind, it always shows up a little bit. They're so pretty.
Yeah. So these guys, I like these guys because they're my hefty chonks, and there's something really satisfying about the thud that it makes when it hits the table, especially when you're rolling for damage. Makes you feel very powerful as a DM.
As a DM, I was just going to say that. As a DM,
Yeah.
I love using my metal dice because my players know.
Yes.
100%.
Yeah.
100%.
And then I've got a whole bunch of other ones. I have a giant sack of dice that's for if anyone ever needs a set to borrow.
Okay.
But
do you ever then play with those dice?
Occasionally, but it's usually if I'm just rolling up a character. The dice that I tend to stick with is I have my DM set that I sometimes use when I DM. I have a set in a box here. I keep them in this box because it was made for me by a friend of mine who we were in a Curse of Strahd campaign when I first moved to the area where I live and I didn't know anyone.
Right.
Someone at my work introduced someone else as quote unquote RDM, to which I said, you guys play D&D. And then I immediately made 5 work friends, which was great.
Great.
This set in here, these guys, I've actually posted a few photos of these on Twitter. They're a black and red combo.
Nice.
Like they're black and blue with red numbers.
Strahdy.
Yeah, the reason I like these guys, this is the first set that I ever bought. And I do believe that despite best intentions, dice can easily end up a little bit weighted one way or another.
Sure.
These guys are usually very nice to me. Usually. They consistently roll very, very well. And for that reason, this is usually the set that I use when I'm a player.
Okay.
And then the last set, which I do not actually use, it's more of like the special set, which I don't use. I just kind of hold on to. Occasionally I'll use it, but it's only for really special occasions. And I do need a dice tray when I roll these guys. Is from UR Wizards. So it's got a Tree of Life, Celtic Tree of Life.
Yeah.
Box, and this is their Obsidian Nordic set. So it's Obsidian dice, and I mean, Skald. I've got it's so hard to see, but the detailing on these guys is insanely fine.
Oh, like runic.
Oh yeah, it's runic and it's so tiny. The gold inscription on these is so tiny. But they are the most beautiful dice set I've ever seen, and they were gifted to me by my partner. So
that is
these guys,
yeah, so very special occasions.
super special dice.
Yes.
And it's like special enough that like I almost never use them because of that. So
right. Yeah, I can totally understand that. So, are you like a dice goblin? Are you always looking for new reasons to buy dice, or is like dice acquisition a very specific purpose?
I am much more purposeful about acquiring dice.
Okay.
I don't have a ton of them, and I typically won't get a new set unless there's something really special about them.
Okay.
However, I will ogle the heck out of dice sets
Sure.
until the cows come home because there's so many amazing dice creators out there who are doing so many just absolutely brilliant, creative, different, unique, really cool stuff with their dice. And so even if I'm content with the sets that I have, I will look at dice all day long. So
I totally agree with you. The most recent school club that I ran was for a high school, thank God. Because one day I was just kind of walking through the hallway. It was like lunchtime or break or something. And I saw a couple of my nerdlings seated playing Magic the Gathering. And I went over and I just kind of sat there with them. Like I just needed a little bit of a mental break. And I didn't want to see any of my actual students. And it was just like one of those days. And I sat next to them and I opened up like Twitter and my TikTok. And I was just kind of going through. And I noticed that one of my students was kind of leaned over and was looking at it. And she was like, "Oh, what are you looking at?" And I just wasn't thinking. I was like, "Oh, dice porn."
Yeah.
And she was like, "I'm sorry." And I was like,
"Yeah.
You know what? I'm just going to go back to my classroom and forget that I ever said that and hope that I don't get fired." And they joked about it for the rest of the school year. But yeah, like I am definitely a dice Ferengi. Like I will try to cross the streams there. I love collecting dice. But I haven't.
There's so many amazing sets and there's some really amazing creators out there. We actually at AQH, we're actually affiliated with Foxfire Dice.
Cool.
She's a much smaller shop, but she hand makes all of her dice and it is absolutely beautiful, beautiful work that she's got.
Okay, I am going Foxfire Dice. I'm going to throw the... What? Look at the Wisterious... Hold on. I'm putting the link in chat because everybody needs to go see this. Look at these Wisteria dice.
She makes amazing stuff. Yeah. She's makes absolutely amazing dice. Yeah.
Holy Moses. Holy Moses. And like, yeah. Okay. Well, that is and the Artemis dice. Okay. Next time I'm over, now that I live on the East Coast, like the trip to London, MCM, is very short, once conferences are safe to go back to. I'm really looking forward to going to, we just bit the bullet and we were like, we got to kind of dip our toe in and see how things are going. So we bought tickets to Gen Con for this summer.
Wow. Okay.
And if we get there and like people aren't taking mask mandates seriously or whatever, or who cares if there's a mask mandate? If people aren't taking public health precautions seriously, we will eat the cost of the tickets and just kind of hang around the city for a bit where we know that there's friends of ours that are going. So we're going to go meet with people. But like, I have been budgeting money. I'm glad there's not a Starbucks in my town because I've been taking my money and putting it aside so that I can do dice acquisition this summer.
Nice. Nice.
I am so stoked. I love it.
Yeah. She has really cool work and she's done some, used her dice for fundraisers as well in the past. And just honestly having had some interactions with her personally, she's super, super nice. So definitely recommend check out her stuff.
And women owned. So we love shouting that out. Links there in the chat. Go and get it. So good. Do you prefer to DM or do you prefer to play?
I am honestly split 50-50. I am completely split.
Does it matter by the system or does it matter by the people?
It matters by the people.
Okay.
For me. I think it really matters by the people for me. I people who are rules lawyers and who are fixated on min-maxing, I will have a harder time DMing
Okay.
for, because I prefer to tell a good story. Um, I also know that when I DM, if I have a choice between a homebrew and having to build an entire world from the bottom up, or using a pre-made module, I will choose homebrew.
Okay.
I will run a module, no problem, but I also love building my own stuff.
Sure.
And I love playing. I mean, the thing is that I think that having done both a fair bit,
Mm-hmm.
I really it comes down to how often I've been doing one or the other. Because if I've been DMing for a
Right.
while, it's nice to be a player and vice versa. But I think that being a DM makes you a better player. Being a player makes you a better DM. And
100%.
I really actually like flip flopping back and forth between them. And again, a lot of it comes down to the campaign and the group. So, but yeah, honest answer, I don't think I can just choose. So,
Both.
yeah.
I really struggled having rules lawyers because I
Mm-hmm.
will throw out the book if I can tell a cinematic moment or if it serves the narrative. Like,
Mm-hmm.
if you're going mano a mano, toe to toe with the big bad in the final thing, and you're down to 1 hit point, and he's still got 100, and you roll a natural 20, but you only do like 60 points of damage. I'm gonna let you kill him. Like
Yeah.
that's the story. That's how the story goes. But that being said, my nephew plays in our home game, and he really enjoys that min-maxing capacity, and that he really enjoys making the rules fit, and
Mm-hmm.
bending them. Like, that is just something he really enjoys, and I don't want to take that away from him. So what I did was I just told him, fine, you can play that way, but you are responsible to track every rule and homebrew decision that I make, because I will change the rules depending
Yep.
on things, and you're responsible for being our lore keeper so that you can hold me consistent when I say this, that,
Right.
or the other. And it has
Right.
given him like such a purpose, and he really enjoys it. And it makes it easier for me, because then I'm not taking notes and like trying to worry about
Mm-hmm.
consistency.
Mm-hmm.
He'll tell me like, oh, well, last time you ruled that it was half round down,
Mm-hmm.
and like, yeah, that has worked out really well.
I will say, as someone who does DM, I've got to throw a shout out there to the players who take notes.
Oh, come
Love
on.
you all. You are amazing.
Look,
You save everybody else's butts, and you are underappreciated. So
and
those who take notes are the best.
save mine too.
Mm-hmm.
I
Mm-hmm.
my general channel mod, who is usually always here. She doesn't usually work Thursdays, but she's there today. Shout out Singlis when you watch this later. She is my note taker, and she loves stories and note taking so much that she will be a note taker and a lore keeper for streams that I run or that I'm on,
Nice.
that she's not even playing in. And God, and she's a scientist, so she's like really precise about like keeping good notes, and like,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
she kept statistics for a game that I was in. Come on.
Wow, that's
Come
dedication
on, it
right
was like
there.
crit rolls,
That's really
but like
impressive.
for us, it was, we had like 8 viewers. It was like us and her watching it, and she was keeping
Right.
stats for us. She had spreadsheets and shit. It was amazing.
Oh man,
Um,
that's awesome.
I love it. I love it. But yes, Anne says she almost ripped into someone about mechanics because he didn't like that you wanted to fit the mechanics to your character concept, because he builds a concept around mechanics. This comes back to, and I'm curious what you think. I'd be
Mm,
surprised if it wasn't like agreement, not to be a bitch, but like, find a table that you love. If what you love is
mm-hmm.
min-maxing, go find a min-maxing table, because there
Mm-hmm.
is a table for everybody, even like shitty old white gatekeepers. There's a plenty of
Mm-hmm.
tables. Go find a table you love. Don't waste your time at a table, even if you're just like, yeah, okay, yeah, that table's fun. Like, go
Mm-hmm.
find a table you love.
Yeah,
Everybody's better for it.
absolutely. It is about having fun.
Yeah.
And that's the thing where this comes down to three different things. First of all, when people are first time DMing and they're worried about being
Mm,
good and they're trying to be Matt Mercer, and it's, be you, because
yeah.
you will bring something to the table that literally no one else can. No one else in the entire world can. And that is you.
Yes.
So
Yes.
bring you to the table. DM the way that you want to DM the table. And to that same extent, when it comes to finding a game, there will always be a table out there that fits your play style.
Yeah.
And it's about having fun. It is about having fun. At the end of the day, that's more important than the rules, is that people are enjoying themselves. They're having a meaningful experience. That is the most important thing. And to DMs out there, because it's easy to forget this, when we say that it's important that everyone is having fun, that includes you. You know, 100%. That includes you.
DM is a player at the table, and be real and have that communication. Like, that's one of the things that I always tell, not like brand new DMs, but like when you're making that transition from like, I finished my first campaign, I think I might become a forever DM because I kind of like it, but there's these things. I always just say like, because I start with a module. I just do not actually have time to homebrew the whole world, and like, just because of the way that I imagine and view things, I find it easier to start from a module. I will diverge from the module pretty significantly, but I start with that. And like, I'm just honest with my players. Like, this is what I need. And I was just telling my Fandolin group a couple of months ago, hey, I know that that in character, you guys have like 4 options. I've had a crazy week. This is the scenario that I scheduled for. I understand that maybe in character, you guys were kind of leaning towards something else. I need you guys to choose this. This is what I've prepared for.
Well, and that's super important too when it comes to choosing your table, is having people who are understanding in that way, who are able to be flexible in that way. Yes. And I think a lot of that comes down to good communication, you know, between people. One of the things that I was really struck by, and this is part of why I am such a fan of Carrie as a DM, is she was excellent about setting expectations before the game, about saying, you know, don't worry about trying to figure out all the rules. We're here to tell a story. And it's not just about things like lines and veils, which are important. It's also about, as a DM, setting the mood, making people comfortable, all that kind of stuff. I think that's really important. So the group that you play with is really, really vital. And for people who are introducing new players to their table, one of the best things that you can do is make a complete idiot of yourself. I, as a DM, love to ham it up, get ridiculous, do funny voices, because the more you do that, the more comfortable they're going to be stepping into that and doing that on their own as well. So it really does come down to right? It comes down to the people that we play with, which I think is something that's so important about the TTRPG community here. It's not just about the stuff that's being created, the games that are being played, the streams that are being done. It is about the people that you do it with. And that, I think, is part of why it has been such a positive space, because there are so many really, really amazing, creative, kind people who are here. So,
and that was like such an inspiration for why I started doing Community Cleric. Was I wanted to do like women-centered content. That was really important to me. But also I wanted to highlight specific women that were making such a positive influence on things. And I've really tried to curate, like coming up, I have Finway. I'm super excited to talk to Finway. I have Lore Mistress next week.
Oh, that's going to be great.
I know, that's going to be really good. I'm super excited. And then like I just had Glyza and Momo and Amber and Kaya and Zeal, and like so many amazing women. And I'm so looking forward to, you know, I mean, well, talking about ADHD, I have Katie Asaurus coming on in a couple weeks. And like that's another significantly, maybe not necessarily on Twitter, but on TikTok, a huge voice in the TTRPG and ADHD scene. And so, I'm looking forward to to having those voices heard and just like that spot.
Absolutely.
Shit, we are almost out of time. Did I not tell you?
You said the hour goes so fast. You're totally right. It goes so fast.
I told you. It goes so fast.
It goes so fast.
We have 10 minutes left.
Oh, man. That's crazy.
What is an NPC that everyone should use at their table? I've been asking this question for the last couple weeks. I'll vamp for a second and let you think. I've been asking this question for a couple of weeks because frequently I've had DMs say, I'm struggling to think of meaningful NPCs, or like how to flesh my world out a little bit more. And so I've now started asking, what's a character, either an NPC in a game where you've been a player or an NPC you use as a DM that somebody could use in their world and make their world just something new.
I think that one of the ones that comes to mind for me, which is so frequently we have characters we have the retired adventurer who's the bartender who's, grizzled and old, who's seen it all, done it all, or we have the kind of bright-eyed sparkly one who wants to go out and adventure it but is too young or their parents won't let them or whatever. I like something in between, which is a character, maybe it's an innkeeper, maybe it's a bartender, a character who genuinely, they know that adventuring isn't for them. They're just not about it.
I love it.
Adventuring isn't for them. But they love hearing about other people's adventures. So the thing with them is that they're like, yeah, I'm not going to go out and fight that dragon, but I really believe in you guys. You got this. Pack your lunch and then please tell me all about it when you come back. So one of those characters who they are okay with saying, you know what, adventuring, the life you guys lead, it's not for me, but I kind of like living it vicariously. So please tell me all about it, which is nice because then you get interaction between them and the NPC, and you have. Because one of the things that I think is hard to remember sometimes with these games, we love making the edgy characters with all those backstories, is that sometimes people want to live a quiet life. And there is nothing wrong with that. I mean, as Bilbo Baggins says, it is no bad thing to celebrate a simple life. Small acts of kindness, things like that are really, really critical and vital in their own way and often overlooked. So I think having an NPC that can embody that is super important.
I love that. And all the time that I've been DMing, I mean, obviously there's villagers who, are happy in their lives or whatever, but I haven't put that intention behind it. I love that idea. Oh man, that gives me, I was looking for,
perfect,
for some good stuff for my home group. Is we're going on 3 years of, we started as a Lost Mines of Phandelver campaign. We're, now into like the full Dragons of Icespire Peak trilogy and, all of that. I'm looking for, we're ending, they're like level 13, level 14. We're looking at the end game now. And I think that's really beautiful. I love that. Thank you for sharing that.
My pleasure. I am so glad you like it.
I love that so much. Who are some other inspirations, other people that everybody else should know about and should follow? Who inspires you? They can be big, they can be small, they can be not on Twitter. Like, who are some other amazing people who inspire you?
This would be one of the things where the list would go on way the heck too long.
And
the heck too long.
And I will fully give you the disclaimer that I only warned you about this a couple minutes before the stream started. So there is no way that this is an exhaustive and comprehensive list, and you do not get to hold this against Skald. You put this against me because I did not give her a week to prepare an Oscar acceptance list of thank yous. Okay, I'll just put that out there.
There's so many amazing people in this community, and there's so many people that I have been so grateful to communicate with directly. Again, the list is absolutely endless. So I think for the sake of keeping it really, really simple, if I was limited to just like one person or one entity, I think the one that actually comes to mind for me is the team over at Abyssal Brews, which is Matthew and Fernando. And the reason why is because when I first entered the TTRPG sphere, first of all, they make really cool content. They make really creative, really cool, brilliant content on a weekly basis. And when I first came into the TTRPG sphere, I was kind of interacting with them, and they were big already at that point in time. And Matthew, who runs the Twitter mostly, I was tiny. I was so tiny. I was the teeniest little, like 100 some odd follower, maybe at that. I was so tiny. And I'd been asking some questions about their stuff and talking, and Matthew took a good solid hour or so. He even DM'd me and was like, welcome to the community. Here's some stuff to know. Gave me some excellent advice, which is support other people because you get what you give.
Yeah.
And just was so incredible. And I was like, here's some tips you might check out for advertising. We do things called self-promo Saturdays. Here are these things. You should know this, this, and this. And was just super kind, incredibly welcoming. And even despite the fact that I was so teeny tiny, was engaging so much, and so as far as helping me get a bit of a foothold in the community. And beyond that, and beyond just the stuff that they create, Matthew has great advice when it comes to running tables, all that kind of stuff, when it comes to advertising, when it comes to knowing about the nitty gritty and the actual kind of mechanical aspects of trying to make money through doing TTRPG work and all that kind of stuff. And his counterpart, Fernando, who does the art for their creations, absolutely gorgeous art. Oh, it's so pretty. And they've started posting sort of little work in progress things where you can see his art process.
Yes.
One of the first podcasts that I ever listened to was Derek over at How Not to DM Studios. Great podcast, interviewing the two of them and the way that the two of them work together and how they have different strengths and how they kind of balance each other and all that kind of stuff. And Abyssal Brews was a really big part of my introduction into the community and a big part of kind of showing me the ropes and explaining some of how it works. And to date are just really amazing people to interact with. So if I had to narrow it down to one, that would be it. But I also need to send a little shout out to my homies who jumped on board around the same time, which was DM Studios, Lost Haven Art.
Yeah.
We had Kira to Wolves Den, all those guys, Dragon Crown, who I think is in chat still, all these guys, we all kind of started getting a foothold in the community at the same time. So because it was like our little cohort pod, there's definitely some camaraderie with those guys too. But there's honestly no end to amazing creators in this community.
Yeah.
I mean, absolutely amazing folks. And just our people who did streams, Amber and Momo, just there's everywhere you look, you throw a stick and it's going to bounce off at least 6 amazing creators before it hits the ground. And not just amazing creators, but really amazing people too. And that's part of why I love this community so much. It's really amazing.
I was just on Gamer Tales with Luna, Gamer Mom Luna. I was on her show a few weeks ago, a month ago maybe, and Andy was on the show. And it was the first time, like, obviously we like run in similar circles, but it was the first time that he and I had ever really interacted. What a sweetheart. He did art for one of the, because I run a show for DMDM, The Lord of the Rings, The Range to the North, and our JJ, she's new and up and coming, and so kind and generous, started out over there with DMDM, and he drew her very first piece of fan art ever of her character. Like, what a way to uplift somebody is to like get that piece. So yeah, I really respect and appreciate the whole team over at DMDM, and like everybody he associates with are going to be decent people.
They're good people.
He really has excellent douche vision. Like, I really have learned to trust him on that. So I appreciate that. I threw as many of those links as I could into chat.
Awesome.
I will put them, if you're watching this on YouTube later on, hi, thanks for watching this. Hit follow or the bell, or I don't know what to say. And check the doobly-doo, because I put the links in there as well. Where can people... I'll put your thing. Oh, I'm not good at remembering to do this stuff. Where can people find you? What are the things you're doing?
The best way to find me is on Twitter, at Skald of Shenanigans. I also do have a Ko-Fi where I upload those little pocketbooks that I make. I'm also on the Awfully Queer Heroes website, and I can be found at the Awfully Queer Heroes Twitter as well, because I help run that account. But if you want to say hi, shoot me a DM. Don't be shy. Just come find me on Twitter. I love talking and interacting with people. So yeah, I promise I don't bite much.
Or like without consent, because maybe that's a thing.
There you go.
All right. Well, look, that was our hour. It goes so quick. Thank you for everything that you do and for providing such an amazing space. I just really have appreciated getting to just soak in like that goodness, and to be able to just be a part of that and see how much goodness there was. So thank you for creating that space, for curating that
pleasure.
Space.
My pleasure. I just feel so lucky to be a part of this community and to be able to interact with all these amazing folks. It really is. It's a gift, and I'm really grateful for it. And thank you so, so much for having me on the show. Honestly, has so much fun. So thank you so much. Really appreciate it.
It is my pleasure. Thank you to everybody who's watching. A special shout out to Akin Foolish. Another kind of, he likes to play low, but he has done all of the music for Community Cleric, for everything else that I've asked him to do.
Nice.
He just doesn't say no to me for anything. And I mean, aside from my ego liking that, like, also he's just a genuinely good person. So a shout out to Akin Foolish as well. Next week I have Kat, Lore Mistress, so come back
Gonna
and
be
join
good.
us same time. And then I'm moving. I'm not keeping Community Cleric on this channel. We're going over to Girls Run These Worlds, which is super exciting. I am excited to bring my stuff and be a part of that network. I mean, I don't know, I'm one of the founders, I'm part of the network, but like in a, you know, on an on-screen way. I'm super, super excited. So thanks everybody for joining us.
Thanks, you guys.
We will see everybody next week or around the internet. And, oh, we got to raid somebody. I'm the worst at this. See, this is why I need my moderator, Skald, is because I am the worst. Let's see. Okay. Usually I've started making my guests choose who we raid so that I don't have to think about it. But I won't put that on you because I forgot to pre-warn you about that.
I was going to say roll a dice. Roll a dice.
You know what? I
roll
do
a dice.
happen to have
Let the
some
dice decide.
Here.
Come on, that's how we got to do it.
Okay. It's either going to be evens or odds because there's two different amazing women that we could go to. So it's either going to be evens or odds. It's evens. We're going to go over to Cage. Do you know you follow Cage?
Yeah.
Holy smokes, man. Another just amazing, another amazing woman who just uplifts others. And I asked her to be, I'm going to say this before we go raid her channel. I asked her to be on my International Women's Day stream for Vancouver by Night. And she said, hey, thanks for thinking of me. I just want to make sure that you're already casting more than 50% women of color. Otherwise, I'm happy to give my seat up to somebody else. And I was just like, yeah, I appreciate that.
Nice.
That's
nice.
That
nice.
Really, I was kind of looking to play with her, but it really helped me kind of set the direction of, oh shit, yeah, I need to be very intentional and not just like, yes, I always have women of color in my cast, but like I need to be intentional about what that percentage looks like. So shout out to Cage. Okay, so we're gonna go. How do I do this again? Raid. I'm gonna take us off. Everybody stick around. Remember to hit Cage's name so that it goes over to their view count. Thank you, Skald, for being my guest.
My pleasure. Thank you so much for having me.
My very distinct pleasure. We will see everybody next week. See you guys later.
Bye, guys.